Hello guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about one of the Ascendancy skills, which is given to the Gemling Legionary. It's called Virtuous Barrier. It's something that you have to take, and it's something that a lot of people are using this season because it's on the way to the beautiful Advanced Thaumaturgy, which is an amazing skill. However, Virtuous Barrier is not an amazing skill. We're going to talk about Virtuous Barrier for a second, and I'll try and explain how you can get the most out of it, but also at the same time explain why it's not really the greatest ability. So let's read it first. It says, while active, conjures a glittering barrier that accumulates protective gemstones. As you can clearly see, I have gemstones around my character. You can see them glittering. It's really actually kind of annoying. Motes, it accumulates motes of each attribute type over time, but loses a random mote when you are hit. So how does it generate motes? It generates motes based on the each attribute of each item, or basically skill that you're utilizing. So if you take a look at your skill panel and you look at like the various skills that you have active, like this is considered a dexterity skill because it's a pure dex, which means it gives 2 motes. Something that is more of a shared skill that has like 2 different requirements, like maybe requires dexterity and intelligence, is going to give 1 of each instead of 2. That's how they basically split this up, and I kind of tested it out. So if you want to get more of a specific type of mote, your best bet is to put like a specific strength or intelligence or whatever like skill in, because like for instance, if you wanted as many like evasion, armor, energy shield motes as you can get, which you actually do, by the way, and I'll explain, then you're going to want to have as many dexterity options as possible. So many dexterity skills, because every dexterity skill is going to increase the total by 2, which is great. You only gain a mote every 1.52 seconds, which is pretty crap. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. 1.52 seconds is pretty bad for something that you have. As you can see up here, I have currently 11 plus 7, which is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I have 23 motes, which means that for it to calculate 23 motes, that means 1.52, which means it's going to take 34 seconds for me to regenerate, or roughly 35, because it's 34.96. So 35 seconds to regenerate all my motes, which is a pretty long period of time, especially in combat. Now, it wouldn't be so bad if the motes didn't disappear, but they do. So it says maximum of each attribute of mote is 3 plus the number of skills you have which require that attribute. Single attribute skills grant twice as many maximum motes, as I talked about earlier. So if you have a dexterity skill, it gives 2. If you have a shared skill that has like strength and dexterity, or dexterity and intelligence, or whatever, it's going to give 1 of each. 2% increased maximum life per strength mote, which is really nice. 5% increased armor, evasion, energy shield per dexterity mote, which is the best one. 5% increased life regeneration, and 5% increased mana regeneration per intelligence mote. Now, why is the increased armor, evasion, energy shield one the best? Why would you not want increased life? Increased life is amazing, right? Well, the answer to this question lies in how the mechanic works. So every time you are hit, right? So loses a random mote when you are hit. So every time you technically take a hit, you lose a mote. Now, this isn't too much of an issue when you're fighting a monster that only does like 1 attack every once in a while. Like if you're fighting a boss that does like, just like 1 hit. But most of the monsters in the game have these abilities that hit multiple times within a certain period of window. I can like just name off a couple of them, like those little scavengers that shoot poison out, or the spiders that have like that chain gun spider attack that they do, or the little lava monsters that shoot out lava out of their butt. Like a lot of monsters in the game have tiny damage numbers that count as multiple hits, and they will wipe all of your motes instantaneously. Like the motes on this ability are absolutely useless because the majority of the time they're not there. This means that evasion, which is the only thing that actually works to essentially protect your motes, because when you evade attack, it is not a hit, right? So evasion grants a chance to evade enemy hits, preventing them from hitting you at all. So the only way to make this virtuous barrier highly effective is to have extremely high evasion, which means that stacking the dexterity motes in turn also stacks the evasion, which means that you get hit less. And getting hit less means that the barrier, the little motes stay up longer, right? So Unfortunately, with the way that the Virtuous Barrier works, is you want to have evasion of some type on your build. Otherwise, the motes are completely useless. Now, with evasion, if you're running a hybrid evasion like evasion armor, or you're running evasion energy shield, or something of that nature, I think you'll find that the motes are slightly more effective in those scenarios because you can prevent getting hit, which means preventing them from getting lost. However, pure evasion is probably the best bet for Virtuous Barrier, maybe tied together with deflection, so that you can essentially almost completely keep your Virtuous Barrier intact the majority of the time. Another big issue is that when you die, like for instance, let's say you're fighting a boss or something and you happen to die, when you come back, your motes are not active. They have to regenerate. So you have to sit there for like 35 seconds for all your motes to regenerate. And depending on how many motes you have, which if you have more motes than I do, which you can, by the way, because you can be using like enhanced skill gem, rings, so you can have more skill gems. You can also get more skill slots in other ways. So the more skills you have, the more motes you have, and the more motes you have, the longer it takes for them to regenerate. Now, I will say that 2% increased maximum life per strength mote is very nice. However, losing maximum life when you lose the motes is very bad. The 5% increased armor evasion is the one that I focused on because I'm currently a armor evasion hybrid, and I have about a 59% chance. I got 13,831 evasion rating, which isn't really enough. It's not. But that's with the motes. So without the motes, I'd be even lower, which means that the motes would go off even faster. If I had to redo this character, I would probably focus more on evasion, specifically because those motes do seem to be useful, just not in a pure armor or pure energy shield setup. You would definitely want some type of hybrid setup with this particular ability. Now, what can you put in it to make it more useful? One of the questions I get a lot with these is like, what do you put like support gem wise into these? Well, as far as I remember, nothing. This is one of those abilities that just doesn't really have any good support gem options. In fact, if you go to it and you look at it, there's like essentially nothing to put in here that doesn't cost spirit. Now, granted, you could use it as a spirit dump spot, so if you happen to have a large amount of spirit and you'd like to get access to one of these spirit bonuses, I guess you totally could. But for the most part, pretty much everything on here is spirit related. And then you have these, which I'm pretty sure don't even apply to the ability. I don't even know why they're classified to work on Virtuous Barrier. All in all, Virtuous Barrier is one of those, like, you have it because it's part of your Ascendancy, but if you had the choice, you probably wouldn't get it. Like, in my personal opinion, like, I think my points would be better spent somewhere else, like over here. And I think the reason why they did it is because Advanced Thaumaturgy is so good that they didn't want you to be able to get Advanced Thaumaturgy as a single point, right? So a single point ability is something that you can get very cheaply, right? So it's very powerful. Whereas something that requires a 4-point investment is something that they consider to be more powerful, right? Well, they consider this to be a 4-point investment, I guess, and they force you to go through this, which is meh. One of the things that I think they could do to make this thing better, my personal opinion, let's talk about that for a second. Since we're talking so negatively about it, let's talk about what they could do to fix it. First off, they need some type of delay, just like they have on a lot of skills. Like say they put on Combat Frenzy, which forces you to only lose, gain 1 charge every like 5 seconds or something, right? Like they need a thing in here, and it doesn't have to be very large, but make it so that you can only lose 1 mote per second. Because those abilities, especially the like really fast channeled abilities that hit multiple times within a small period of time, can just completely rip all your motes away, and they do so with extreme efficiency. The motes, I understand what they're for, and I understand the entire idea of not getting hits and, of course, keeping your motes. But as it is currently, like the system is just completely pointless because the motes are only up when you don't need them, and when you need them, they're never up because you get hit all the time. The only class that can currently take advantage of them is the classes that don't get hit, which are evasion-based classes. Every other class doesn't really take advantage of it. And this is another issue because the Gemling Legionnaire is kind of set up as a jack-of-all-trades, like do-it-all type of character. Like he's designed around the idea that he can be a caster, he can be a melee, he can be a ranged, he can be a minion character, he can be just about anything. And, well, this ability is not designed with that in mind. It's designed in a very different direction, which is like that. If you want to get the most out of this ability and you want it to actually be active and you want to actually get the benefits of this ability on a regular basis, then you need to just not get hit ever. So that means that stand behind your minions or run full evasion or whatever, or just kite all the time and never get hit. But like in general, it just doesn't work with any character that is melee. It doesn't work with any character that is actually getting hit, like armor characters or energy shield characters. It doesn't work with a lot of things. I think they could do some work on this, and this is patch version 0.54, I think, B right now. So who knows, in the future we may see some changes to this, and hopefully they'll fix it so that it's not poopy. That's pretty much it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.